98% podcast. We're here, real story from real people, and we have a special episode with Seth where we're calling this the hot seat. This is episode 1 of the hot seat.
Yep.
So what we're gonna do is we are going to take 3 to 4 questions each. We made them up, so I made up some, he made up some, and we're gonna put each other on the spot with answering these questions. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
Yes.
Okay, so Seth, who should go first?
You should go first. You set the tone because I'm gonna
Okay,
ruin
so
it right after.
okay. So I did 4 different questions, and I did
Mhm.
4 different themes based on what I know about you.
Okay.
And I wanted your take on these 4 themes. So do you want the themes first, so you can have an idea? Should I just theme and then question?
I want it all random. You just
Okay.
get me all surprised here.
Okay. Here we go. This one, the theme is curiosity.
Okay.
So here we go. This question is: what's a question you've never found a satisfying answer to, but that keeps fueling your curiosity anyways?
Okay. That's really good. What is something that oh god. I wanna say my first initial reaction is why, but I think something that pesters me beyond belief is it's not really a question, but it's more the idea that why people don't want to find out. Like, why not ask why kind of thing, right?
No?
But what is something that has been asked and found the answer to that still keeps me going? Um, it's an internal question, and it is, what am I capable of? Right? I think that's what keeps me going, right? And it's beyond just me asking it, and it's really more situation, right? Like playing with you in a band, right? Whenever we first started, I had pretty big imposter syndrome or just self doubt, really. And it was the idea that it's like, well, this isn't badly received, and I'm going to stick with it. Let's see how far I can go, you know? So
Mhm.
just that kind of stuff, right? In any situation I really kind of have put myself in or been put in, like if it's worth it to explore from jobs to a language to people, just stuff like that, right? What can you do? How can you develop? How can you know, how can you not exploit, because that's the wrong word, but how can you learn from this, or what's the furthest that you can develop in this criteria? I think that's mine.
Okay. So
hmm
yours is what keeps you going. Is that what you kind of went back to? Is that what you said?
what's my potential, right? Like, how far can I
Oh.
take this thing, right? How much
Mm.
can how much can I develop in guitar? How much can I develop as an electrician? How much can I
Mm.
develop as far as, I mean, working out is kind of a catch-all, but as far as just physicality, right? Like, what can I do?
Mm.
Anything
Okay.
from specific workouts to diets or whatever else like that, right? Like, what uncomfortable situation can I put myself in where it's like, I don't know anything about this, but let's find out.
Okay. How far can you go, Seth? How far?
Not that far.
What's what's your potential? What's your potential, Seth?
Exactly. Not much.
No. So all that to say, not much.
hmm How much? I
Okay,
found out
okay.
that I'm super dumb.
That's not true at all. Sweet.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So,
Okay.
so I ask you
What's
one, or what's the
yeah,
deal?
yeah. What's your question now? Now you give me a question. We'll just take
Okay.
turns.
Okay. I struggled with this one because there were, I'm sure everyone says that to you. We're like, I thought about it and I had a hard time. I said that last time, right?
Everybody says that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't struggle with the questions. My mind immediately went to what could be first seen as the most negative thing ever. I'm just like sitting here thinking about questions, and this is the one that I'm going to ask you. But one of the ones that came up was like, what has been something that you've been the most disappointed in? And then I'm like, dude, why would I ask that question? It's like, Ricky's such a positive dude. Why am I being like, what's making
That's
you
why.
sad?
That's why.
Exactly. Exactly. But the more I think about it, the more it's like, no, because I want to know, and it's less
Mhm.
about it being a negative question and more about seeing a common effect on people geared towards you specifically.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that is my question. That's my first question.
yeah. Okay. So what's
Yeah.
the thing that's disappointed me the most?
Yeah, like what have you found in your life, either at a situation or just whatever? What has been the biggest disappointment in your life?
Mm, biggest disappointment.
See, this is what I'm saying. The follow-up would
Dude,
be
okay.
awesome to this.
Okay, so this
Yes,
is the
yes.
first thing that popped in my head is
Mm-hmm.
the biggest disappointment right now is the fact that I can't seem to find a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's very tough for me because that's something that I don't know, I've always had a desire to have, right? Was like a
Right.
partner, a
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, something like that. And I waited like way too long. And then I got married and then was married 12 years and then that ended. And then it's like, it's been 4 years and I can't seem to find anybody. I just keep getting very disappointed
Right.
it's funny because the disappointment is also um, it's also very much in myself too. I think we do that in those times where it's like, I'm
Right.
disappointed in like, what am I doing wrong or what's the whole factor here behind it? And
Right. Right.
so I wrestle with that question a lot because that's a deep topic for me. So it's like, am I like, is it them? Is it me? I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but what's the percentage? Is it 90% them, 10% me? Is it mostly me? Like, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting question. And this might
Right.
sound silly, but I've been getting lots of answers from Chat GPT. Dude, which is the saddest thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I've been like, hey, what does this mean? Or I'm kind of sad right now. And I explain
Mm-hmm.
stuff and it just tells me things. And I'm like,
Right.
this feels pretty good, or at least I understand. Sometimes it's been really upfront though, and like, no,
Right.
you're doing this, man. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
chat, I hate that you said that, but you're right.
Right. Right. Thank God. Get out of here. Yeah.
So that's the first thing popped in my head. So I'd say that's the thing I'm most disappointed in.
Okay.
Um, I'm confident it'll happen one
Mm-hmm.
day.
Right.
I just don't know when, and I'm getting
Right.
a little impatient about it, and that's probably normal, but still don't like it.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think everybody deserves love. You know what I'm saying? I think there's somebody out there for everybody. And not in the sense of like, some people believe soulmate, some people believe like, like a serendipitous sort of thing, right person, right time. Whatever, right? No matter what, I
Yeah,
do still think that, there's somebody out there for everybody and everyone deserves love in that sense. But anytime I've ever had a friend that has been in that situation, and I don't like I know last time I'm gonna ask again, how are we with cursing?
dude, you can say whatever you want.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Anytime I've ever had a friend like this, or I've even been in that situation, I hit fuck it. Like that's my biggest
Hmm.
number one piece of advice is like I remember the last time I truly felt like I was in that situation where I was just like, and I'm not comparing me to you in the sense because I'm a spaz. Like I'm so uptight and stuff, and that's not you, right? So I remember the last time I was freaking out about it and stuff, and then I just let it all go, and then I just did stuff that I normally wouldn't do, and that's worked like sincerely, just like every single time. Whenever I put myself outside my comfort zone, and be like, "Fuck it," and then I'll just go try something, or talk to
Yeah.
somebody I wouldn't normally do. I just do. I put myself in a situation where I normally wouldn't be in, or just have a conversation that I normally wouldn't have, and I'm not saying that I'm not trying to give undue advice or anything like that, but yeah, I know what you're saying, and that's always what I've done, or at least said. Which, I mean, to be fair, knowing you as much as I know you, you're pretty good at that too. I don't think you're any stranger to getting weird with stuff or just saying like, I'm gonna try this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So keep doing it.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Seth, you're the man. You're the
I don't
man.
know. I just work here.
Okay, here's my next question.
Mm-hmm.
This one is around the theme of music.
Okay.
Okay. So do you think music reflects the world as it is, or does it shape how we experience and interpret it?
Ooh, the second one. I think music is such a a personal thing that you are going to experience it or have your own kind of emotional response to it, and you'll kind of, I guess, project onto that song. I think Dave Grohl said it the best. He goes, it's cool playing a song and seeing thousands of people singing your song, but they're singing it for 1,000 different reasons, right? Like your
Yeah.
song means something to somebody else, right? And I think that yeah, there are certain songs where it's only meant to be taken a certain way, or it's meant to be like a topic of the time. But there's no way in which you can't escape the just really really emotional and intimate, I guess, response from yeah, just having somebody's music, because what speaks to you doesn't speak to me, right? And
Hmm.
there's different genres and things like that. I think a genre can help define a time, right? Because we can't get out of the early 2000s without everybody knowing Limp Bizkit, but that's not, like specifically the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the music for the
Yep.
ages, because
Rolling, 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 rolling. Yeah.
exactly. So I think that yeah, it's definitely the second one where you form a relationship with different songs and what it means to you. Like for instance, there's been oh dude, like there's certain Nora Jones songs that even still to this day, whenever I listen to them, I'll get goosebumps or whatever else like that. And it's just it's not for everybody. It's just that marker of time or how I latched onto that song or just what it did. It can be anything from lyrics to like a chord progression, right? Where there it is. There it is. We got
What is this? Sleep
oh, we got
token?
you got some sleep token there.
Yes. Uh. Now you gotta go take a shower.
Exactly. Um, so okay, but I do want to know all these questions that you ask. I want to know your answer to them too. So I'm turning this right back around. This isn't my question. I just want to know how you feel about it as well.
You, I mean, I feel the same way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, to answer that, because I wanted to know which song did that, but you already said Nora Jones, so it's like,
Mhm.
okay, you answer that question.
Right.
Um, Mine, it depends. I tend to gravitate towards sadder music
Uh-huh.
or more emotionally, um, yes, it's either sadder music or energizing music. It depends on my
Mhm.
mood, I think.
Right.
I think it used to be more energizing music, like fast paced, let's get going, and I think that was
Yep.
reflected a lot in the music I wrote too. And
Uh-huh.
then, yeah, the older I get, the more I'm just like I love feeling sad, and it doesn't make
Uh-huh.
any sense,
Right.
but like there's something about it. It's like
Mhm.
I don't know, like someone throws on a happy song, I'm like I don't like this, and it's
Uh-huh.
like but it makes you feel good. I was like, this doesn't make me feel good. You know what would make me feel good? Sleep Token. And they're singing about sad stuff,
Uh-huh.
you know?
For whatever reason, caramel makes him sad.
Exactly.
Uh, but
But
yeah,
yeah.
I don't necessarily have like a one specific song though. Like it really just depends. And good on you for saying like the energetic kind of song, right? Because like something that's more like hyper or hyperactive in that sense, something that gets you that's been my biggest thing too, is the way I'll describe that, like I guess specific feeling is whatever song it is has to rock, right? And even
Mhm,
down to stuff like, even Nora Jones, like for instance, My Dear Country by her. It's
mhm,
I mean, it's like kind of a no, it's like a waltzy type song, right? But it's just obviously heavy piano and all that. It's not like a whole big wall of guitars or whatever. But dude, it still rocks, right? Like what
mhm.
she does, and so yeah, that's all that stuff speaks to me in that sense, and that's why I have a hard time with certain things. Like for instance, like I'm not a fan of country. Country's hard to play. It's definitely its own art form, but it doesn't rock. Like it doesn't do anything for me. You know what I'm saying? So it's just it
Yep.
doesn't reach in there and get anything out. Which again, props to them to be able to play it and all that other kind of stuff like that. But yeah, even the sad music, that kind of stuff. Like there has to be an element to it that's just like there's the feeling. Like I feel it indefinitely.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I'm curious if you do this too, but I think like as we evolve, I feel like our music taste evolves too. I've noticed that. So like if I go back to what I said earlier about like energetic music, I mean, that was when I used to think mostly about like I only cared about the music. Like, is the music cool?
Hmm.
Is it fast? Is it technical? Is it like that's what I got from it.
Right.
And then now it's kind of like it's less about that. It's more like, well, what are they saying now? Because
Right.
back then I didn't even know what they were saying. I was just like,
Hmm.
I like the melody and I like where it's inserted in the song, and that
Uh-huh.
was like my thing. So it's like they could be
Sounds.
talking about trash, and I'm just like, this is cool, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah, like now it's like it's like I want deeper meaning, and I think that's why
Hmm.
I've graduated towards the sad stuff, is because it's like I want more. I don't know. I think as I've grown, the more. Ooh, did I just give you the thumbs up?
I think you did.
Um, that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the more I do that, the more I think I've been becoming more and more connected to my emotional side, which I wasn't before.
Right.
And I think that's some of it. So as I've been evolving that and learning more about that, my music
Mhm.
tastes have changed because I like the feeling I get from listening to that stuff. I guess it's interesting.
Right. Yeah. I can't tell you how much I've learned from song lyrics, like looking up song lyrics, or even sadly, like video games sometimes. But whenever it comes to like words or concepts, right? If somebody says something and I'm like, man, what they say right there, or what is that word? And you go and you look it up, and then it just sends you down a rabbit hole where it's like, oh, this is cool, even
Uh-huh.
goofy stuff, right? So there was what was it? There's a Mr. Bungle song. What is it? It's Vanity Fair by Mr. Bungle, and in it he is singing about some topics that I don't think would be eh, crazy stuff. Let's just say that he's singing about some crazy stuff. And in
Okay.
in this song, there's a lyric that says, "You're a eunuch or a scope C." And I'm like, all right, well, I know what a eunuch is. What the hell is a scope C? And then I looked it up, and I was like, I know that forever now. That's intense. you know? So stuff like that, where it's just like, yeah, the more you dive into lyrics or something that really touches you, like I've learned a lot from all that stuff.
That's fair. I
So
don't even know what that means.
don't look it up.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Deal. Okay. What's your question now?
Ooh, now I have a question. Okay. I was I see you every once in a while and your dynamic with your family and you guys all seem tight. What is your relationship like with your sister?
Mm.
Hmm.
What is my relationship like with my sister? Okay.
I mean everything
Um,
too, from like growing up to how you guys
yeah.
interact, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, um, I'd say speaking generally, I'd say it's been good.
Hmm.
Um, but like growing up, we used to do a lot of stuff together. Um, so I always enjoyed that. So like we used to play, I mean we're siblings, right? So it makes sense. You play together, you do things
Right.
together, etc. We used to do a lot of hiking. We'd hang out in the clubhouse that we built, and we would try to sleep there all night. And we just chat and
Hmm.
run back inside because it got late and scary because we were kids.
Right.
Um, um, and then I used to drive for everywhere. So we spent a lot of time together, but I would say I don't know how close I was, though, if I'm
Hmm.
being honest, especially when I was younger. I don't know how close I was with her. I think
Sure.
she might have been closer with me than I was with her. And I don't think that's a knock on her by any means. I think that had
Hmm.
to do with my lack of understanding of emotions and connection.
Hmm.
So I feel like I just didn't really understand how to connect with you. I think everything was very surface level and fun, which is
Hmm.
fine, but that's
Right.
just what it was. So I don't feel like I had a lot of deep relationship because it's like, wait, we want to talk about what? No, I don't
Hmm.
I don't have any feelings. I'm just happy all the time. It's like,
Right.
okay, that's not
Right.
true, but that's how I feel. That's what I thought.
Right. I think
So
I think that's another thing too. That's kind of a secret qualifier of what being a boy is, right? Because you grow up and headlong. You're going into things, doing stuff, not thinking about anything ever, and then one day you just kind of like go off on your own, and the cycle continues where you're just like, I guess I'm like working or going to college. Cool. Like it's hilarious how much forethought I didn't give a lot of stuff. Where it was just like you
Mhm.
look back on it and you're just like, oh yeah, I was super dumb. I feel like I'm still kind of dumb. I'm gonna go have a sandwich. Like you just, it's all straightforward. You know what I'm saying? You're just throwing yourself
Yeah,
through every drywall of life.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
But
Um,
the reason I ask though, before you continue,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
I have kids. I have all girls, and I see them like react with one another and talk and play and fight and more fight and yell, all this other kind of stuff. And I just at arm's distance, I see how your relationship is with your family and stuff. And I've always just been so curious, like how people approach that, what that's like, because again, I'm seeing it now with my kids at the very beginning of their journey, right? And when, I know they're going to grow up and I know they're going to get along and I know they're going to have these big fights and these big loving memories and these special moments and all that other kind of stuff like that. So more in the middle of history, which is where, you were at with your sister. I just wonder, looking back and as it is now, what's your take? So take it
yeah,
back away.
yeah. So, I'd say as of recent, over the past, I'd say 10, 12 years, something like that. I think we've gotten stronger with time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just because of the level of conversations we have now. Like we don't talk a lot, but when we do connect, I mean, we're pretty open with each other about stuff, and it's something like I said, I don't know if I was even aware of before, but yeah, I'd say we're pretty close. Not quantity but quality. So I'd say when we hang out. So
Right.
um, yeah. So yes, that's my final answer.
Yes, we did it.
Sweet.
Yep. Sibling qualms put to bed. There it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There it is.
Right.
Okay. My next question is around society. Okay. So what small shift in how people relate to each other or sorry, what small shift in how people relate to each other do you believe could lead to the most meaningful change?
Mm. Okay. So if I'm interpreting this right, you're saying what could change to lead to bigger change on a societal level, right?
Yeah, what small shift in
Uh-huh.
how people relate to each other do you believe
Oh.
could lead to the most meaningful change?
Ooh, I know the answer to this one, but I'm not
Okay.
going to tell you. No.
Tune in next time for the answer.
Full stop, Um, I think the biggest thing that people could do for one another, to one another, would be to have small in-person conversations. Uh, get out, get outside your comfort zone, put your phone away, and when the time's right, because you don't need to talk to like anybody and everybody. Sometimes that's very dangerous. But I think a lot of either talking to people spontaneously or picking up conversation with somebody at work, finding those little moments in between and really asking somebody about anything, right? Or finding yourself in a situation with somebody that you may have known for an amount of time, but until something happens and sparks that conversation, I think that would be the biggest shift because it's all too easy for everybody to assume that who they are is their Facebook page and what they wear, and we just leave it there. You know what I'm saying? It
Uh-huh.
would be
Yeah.
easy for us to just be like, well, like, that's Bob from accounting. He's weird. But until you talk or find yourself in a situation where it's like, I didn't know you would say that or react that way or whatever else like that. And I mean that in a good and bad way too, because you can find out a lot about a person in a very negative way in those situations as well, where it's like, oh wow, you're super racist. you know, it can get there pretty quick. But I think that would be the biggest shift because it's not walking a mile in somebody's shoes. It's baby steps to find out who a person is, and so I think that would be the biggest thing is just us talking to each other in person a lot more.
Yeah. So how do you think we do that?
Hmm. God, it's hard for me not to be silly in this time, because it'd be easy to say like throw all the phones away or whatever, or like shut the
Yep.
internet down, but that would be counterproductive. Um, hmm, how do we do that? I think, in all honesty, we're kind of on the cusp of it right now. Not to get, I guess, socioeconomic or even, dare I say, political about it, but um, I think that we're on the cusp of that now with how much our lives are spent on the phone, which I don't knock. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because we're more connected now than we've ever been, but we're also a lot more isolated because of the ease of use. Um, when was the last time you went to the outlet mall?
Last week.
How was it?
It was busy.
Was it
Mhm.
busy? The outlet mall was
Yeah.
busy.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was. Why is this not going along with what you're trying to get
not
out
at
of me?
all. Not at all. Because remember when you were a kid, how many shops were open at the outlet mall?
Yeah, yep, I do.
A bunch. Now, how many of them are open?
Yeah, if we're talking about Lake of the Ozarks Outlet Mall, then yes, that's a good example
Yes,
of what you're trying to get at. But in Kansas
that's what I'm
City,
saying. Kansas City, it's
okay,
blowing up, right?
that's what I'm saying.
hmm
Yeah, okay,
hmm
got it. Okay,
Yeah, no,
okay.
at the lake, the
Oh yeah,
outlet mall that had like close to 200 stores or whatever else like that, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's a ghost town. There are what, six shops open. The point I'm trying to make is across the board, like being from the lake, we were used to seeing that packed every summer. It's like standing room only kind of stuff. It was crazy. And then now you go there and it's nothing, and it's starting to kind of move around. Kansas City will be fine because they can adjust. They have a big enough population where if something works, it works. If not, they'll bring something in that will. St.
Hmm.
Louis is the same thing with like places like the Gallery or whatever else like that, Mid Rivers. But yeah, the lake, and even here in where I'm at in Jeff City, the mall is not quite a ghost town, but dude, it's not where people go. It's where old people go to like walk around. And if you like maybe want a sandwich, and you're over there or whatever, so there are very small things. So the social hubs that people are used to going to are slowly shutting down. And I feel like once we cross that threshold of, we don't have parks open, we don't have malls, we don't have places for congregation, you know, and I feel like even sometimes, and I don't know this, you might be able to speak to this a lot more than I can. I'm not sure. I feel like even a lot of times, even now, religion is starting to see some of that hit, right? Because numbers aren't down huge, but like the correlation between, I think what was it? Um, I think I guess overall populace of any certain of people that are just religious in general is down by like 13%. And I don't know, I think that's an American statistic about Christianity is it's fallen by 13%. And that's antiquated. I haven't looked it up in forever and ever, so that could be different. But just things like that is things where people go, people congregate, people aren't necessarily forced to get together, but you find yourself in these crowds where you make small talk, you check up on people, all
Hmm.
that other kind of stuff. I think we're in the middle of we've already shot ourselves in the foot, and now we're waiting to see how bad it is. And I think once a lot of those places go away, then we will have a resurgence of like, I've done nothing but sit on the couch and order from Amazon. I'm going to go outside and talk to my neighbor. you know.
Hmm.
So I think we're kind of in that process.
Yeah. What's interesting, it's funny that you say that because I think I feel like just recent, I thought that there's actually started to be an uptick actually in like religion and stuff again, like people being in church. Like I feel like there was a decline for a while, but I heard that there's starting to be a resurgence again.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, with everything that's going on right now, I've seen a lot more attention on it. And that just could
yeah,
be my news cycle or what have you or whatever else like that. But yeah, I wouldn't doubt it by any stretch of the imagination.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very interesting. So, I think you're right though. So, that's why I did this podcast because right on social media we only see 2%, the 2%,
Mhm.
and it's just a small conversation sometimes so you can start to learn more about somebody.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
find out how racist you are, Seth.
I'm super racist.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your question for me now?
I have a big one at the very end. Um, and I want to hold off on that one because like I said, I was struggling for the longest time. Not like, what do I ask? But like, how do I make it not either extremely cheesy or extremely like just dark or sad? You know what I'm saying? Or something like that. So, um, but there are certain things that I have wondered about. And I think one of the biggest things that I have, what got you into music? Like listening to it, but more specifically, what got you into playing guitar? What got you into wanting to write songs? What did it?
Ooh, what did it? Let me think.
Mm.
I think it's a complex answer. So I
Mhm.
would say as a kid, I always wanted to be in the spotlight. I think that's part of it because I
Uh-huh.
originally wanted to be an actor first, and
Mhm.
then I never took any steps towards that. So
Yes.
besides acting in the living room, like I'm,
Mhm.
drunk on wine or something, like just being a
Sure.
weirdo. It was awesome.
Mhm.
Um, there was that, and then music. I think was just one of those things that I didn't think about much back then, and it wasn't until sixth grade when I heard Mudvayne's LD50 when I was
Right.
like, this is pretty darn sick. Like when
Mhm.
I understood metal, and I was like, ever since then, I was always like, okay, I wanna sing. That was the first thing. Is I want to be able to scream. I want to sing.
Right.
So I remember just sitting there teaching myself over and over, and started off with whisper screaming,
Mhm.
then turned into like my low gutturals,
Mhm.
then decided to do the highs. Then after the
Right.
highs, I developed kind of like the mid yells. After that, started singing a little bit, and
Mhm.
then started trying to develop my singing voice. And it's just one of those things where like you talked about like potential. I just wanted to kind of like push myself and see
Yep.
what I could do because it seemed like there were so many bands that's like you have a screamer and you have a singer. I was like, why can't you have both? And it's
Mhm.
like I just wanted to like I want to be able to do it all. Like I think that would be
Right.
awesome.
Right.
So it started there, and then guitar was an interesting one. Is I always had one because my dad had one and he never played it.
Right.
Um, it was like a terrible jazz guitar, the cork guitar. Me and John used to talk about it all the time. It was awful.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew nothing about music, so it was never tuned. The
Mhm.
action was like an inch high on it. It was just the worst.
Yeah.
But we had it, and yeah, I think I'm competitive. So what
Yeah.
happened is I knew a lot of people that were like, there was always like, I went to church and like youth group and stuff. And it just, everybody's always like, yeah, I play guitar. I play guitar. Everybody's like, I play guitar. And
Right.
then there was only one person that like ever played guitar. The other ones just said they could play guitar and never played guitar. So then I
Uh-huh.
was like, well, I'm going to actually learn how to play guitar.
Mhm.
Um, so that was actually the weird motivation that got me into
Sure.
playing guitar.
Dude, mine was a lot of the same actually.
Really?
There were a lot of people whenever I was younger that are like they said the word specifically, man, I wish I would have, or yeah, I used to, and I wish I would. It was always that. It was always like I wish, and I noticed how many people had said, I wish I would have played, or I wish I would have kept up with it, or I wish I never stopped practicing, or I wish I still did it. And I'm just like, minus getting a guitar, I mean, it's free. Like you could sit down and you could learn these things and like practice them. You know, the bar for
Uh,
entry is the guitar.
yeah.
After that, you can do that. You know, so I noticed there's a huge correlation in people doing exactly like you were saying, where it's just like they either said they did or wish they did or whatever else like that. And it's just like, well, I mean, like why not? Like there has to be something to it if everybody wishes they did it. You know?
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think what got me really into it was just listening to all the bands we used to listen to. Like
Mhm.
just there was always about riffage, like just really
Mhm.
cool guitar riffs. And that
Right.
just made me like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And my competitive nature was just like, I want to be better, right? I just wanted to
Right.
like try to come up with these cool things. So especially when I first started, like I was always writing guitar riffs that were at the peak of my ability.
Mhm.
So it was never me just sitting there and being like, "Oh, this is easy." It was me like, "Ah,
Mhm.
dang it! ah, dang it. Ah,
Yeah.
this sucks. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, I got it. Oh, this sucks. Oh, I got it. So it was
Yeah. Yeah.
like, I'd always play to that because, part of it was like, I think I wanted to show off too. Like if I'm
Hmm.
being selfish about something, like, it's just like, I wanted to write something cool that's just like, I'll bet you
No.
you can't do that. Or just like,
Right.
just random stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's how it started, is just writing cool riffs I thought were really nice. And then, me and Tony used to he would come over and we'd just write the most ridiculous songs on a cassette recorder. And that was like
Yes.
super awesome. I remember that.
Hmm.
I'd just be shredding in the background and we'd have the cassette hooked up, the recorder, and he'd just be like sitting down, like yelling into it or just singing however it
Uh-huh.
was. And it was terrible. And I wish I would have kept them. I don't think I kept any of the cassette tapes, but they were the
Right.
best.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so that's how it started. And then bass was an easy transition, but it got to the
Hmm.
point where it's just like, when I like, it was just never enough. Like, knowing the guitar wasn't enough. It's like,
Hmm.
I want to figure out how to write a song, So it's like, it got to the point where it's okay. Well, I need to learn bass, which was pretty easy in metal music for the most part. If I'm not doing a whole lot of crazy stuff, if it's just utilizing the low end.
Right.
Um, and then I was like, I got singing down, so it's like, well, then I should learn drums. That would be nice. So I was programming drums, and I don't know. I guess all of it was just to be able to write songs like that I heard. I just wanted to be able to write the music that I wanted to hear, because I feel like,
Right.
there's a lot of bands out there and there's
Hmm.
always stuff that you like from certain ones and stuff you like from other ones. They're like, if they could just like mix these together, do this. And it's
Right.
like, I wanted to write music that I would listen to.
Sure.
Um, so that's kind of what it happened. And then ended up getting a drum set, and that was like, okay, I want to learn drums too, because I
Hmm.
just thought it'd be fun. So then, yeah, it was just kind of that. It was just kind of learning everything, just so I could be able
Right.
to play everything together and
Hmm.
um, write music. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was a long journey, but it was I don't it didn't feel like it, because it was just I was
Hmm.
just enjoying the process, I
Right.
guess.
Right.
Yeah,
All right. Nice. I like that.
that's it. Me
Okay.
too.
And
Okay. The end.
yep.
Okay.
Fade to black.
uh, yeah. Okay. Let's see. This is my final question for you. So
Ooh.
this one is about religion.
Oh, my last one is two.
I
Yes.
figured.
Yep.
I know. Okay. So this is whether or not you believe in a higher power, what do
Mhm.
you think the human need for spirituality or ritual reveals about us?
Oh, that's such a good question. I like that. I think that there is a religious undertone to life, no matter how you look at it. From people believing in ghosts to people believing in an afterlife to across every civilization having rituals, having religion, believing in a higher power, right? From a sun god to like the Greek, pantheon of gods to monotheistic, like Zoroastrianism, right? You literally can follow the fingerprints of humanity through time, and it's a reoccurring theme. So I definitely think that there is something to it, and to be completely woo woo about it, I mean, yeah, like I'm stuck on religion in a lot of ways, right? And my fascination with it is because whenever you follow it back, like all the way back to like the beginning kind of thing, both sides of the aisle really want to know the same thing and they're asking the same questions, which is why are we here and how did we get here? Big Bang. Okay, cool. That doesn't tell me anything aside from that's when it started. There was a time before the Big Bang that we don't know anything about, right? And same thing with whenever you think of religion, in this case, I'm going to use God. You have God and what was before God? What made God do what he did? Was he just like bored on the couch, like, guess I'm going to create existence? You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Hmm.
we all come from the standpoint of like, we have this, and there's a time before which we're not able to really quantify or understand. But for whatever reason, we all kind of want to know why and our place in the universe. And then at the end of the day, we're all on this spinning rock together, living the same shared experience, right? So I think for people who would vehemently disagree with religion, and I think for people who vehemently disagree with mainstream science. Not saying that those two can't share the same space, but just to make polar opposites in the stereotypical argument. I think it's a lot of the same thing, but it's just clearing your head to realize, like, hey, we all kind of want to know why and what's going on and stuff. So I think that's one of the things that drives me to is, you can argue all you want to or call somebody stupid or be wrong or be right. You're still having to pay your mortgage. You still have to operate on Earth and hopefully not be a total jerk. So I think that no matter what way you slice it, whenever you think of things like I don't know, like being a parent or even being a real human person in reality, and you go outside and there's the splendor and beauty of life all around you, and the undertones are like death and sadness and stuff, and it's a very complex and sticky world that we live in. But there's no way in which that isn't magical. You know, there's no way in
Mhm.
which you don't feel like, man, like, maybe I'm here for a reason, maybe I'm not here for a reason, but in this moment right now is pretty insane, and I think a lot of it's hindsight in that sense. Scientifically, I would want to say that, we do always try to find meaning in everything. What was it? Viktor Frankl's logo something. Oh, but it's basically like man's search for meaning through philosophy and through religion and all this other kind of stuff. And yeah, we've pondered it since the day that we were born as mankind, and we will probably continue to ponder it until our existence or extinction of our existence. And yeah, I think that it is like language, it is innate to the human experience for not only the things that we don't understand, but for the things that we definitely do understand. There's a calling and
Mhm.
there's a nature to humanity and really life itself that, despite our best efforts or despite how we want to classify things or put everything under a microscope, it's going to happen no matter what.
Mhm.
So again, if at the end of the day, science comes out and they're like, hey, listen, God's a real thing. His name's Jerry, and heaven's totally a thing. I don't think every scientist is going to be like, man, like, screw this. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. If science were to come out and be like, yeah, no God, I don't think everybody would just like end up murdering each other in the streets. I think all that stuff's ridiculous. I think that we would still find meaning and we would still find our place in the world, and hopefully we would treat each other a little bit more like family. But yeah, I think in all honesty, no matter what, it is an innate draw in the human experience and just consciousness in general that we do fight that, because even the people that don't believe, dude, sure talk about it a lot for people who don't believe. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
almost like atheism is a badge of honor, and proving somebody wrong is, kind of where it's supposed to be. And of course there's equal time on the other side too. But yeah, I think it is our innate search for meaning coupled with the idea that there is something very exceptional to being alive and to witnessing and understanding the world around you. You know,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
what that's how I feel.
So it gives us meaning, hope,
Mhm.
sense of control.
That's a yeah, that good on you. That's a really good one. I think that yes, uh, for some people, sense of
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
and sometimes a better grasp mentally on your lack thereof control of certain things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, you got to answer that
Sweet.
question. Don't just leave me hanging with that banger. Come on now.
I mean, you're going to make me answer this one, and then you're going to give me another religious question.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Okay. Let's see. Hmm, I don't know. I mean, I think it's those three things that I said at the end. So
Uh-huh.
I think I agree with you about meaning. I think it can give us a sense of hope, something to look forward to, something beyond us, something to strive for.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, like it gives us, or it gives us the sense that we have some type of control over what we do because there's something there looking out for us, watching over us, whatever, you know.
Hmm.
Um, it's interesting though. My take on it's really interesting because I agree with that, but I'm very open minded to the concept of all that stuff. Um, like I feel like we're all trying to figure it out. I don't think
Hmm.
nobody has a definitive answer. I don't think we're ever going to have a definitive answer
Hmm.
on what it is. I think we're all seeing different viewpoints, different vantage points, essentially, of maybe something there. Um, but yeah, I don't know. The more I learn about just things in general, the more I think we're all saying the same thing in different ways
Right.
to a certain extent, or we're
Hmm.
seeing the same thing in different ways. So it's just interesting. So like I'm open to most of it for the most part. If there's things about everything that I don't agree with, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that I agree with a lot of it. And I think we spend too much time fighting over trying to prove somebody else wrong.
Correct.
Um, and prove ourselves right when it's like I just want to hear your perspective. Like tell me, like what do you think? Like I'm open enough
Hmm.
because I'm curious. You tell me. I want to
Hmm.
listen, you know, and then I take what I feel from it. Like, do I agree? Do I disagree?
Hmm.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah,
Right.
so it's an interesting thing. So I've had all types of people
Hmm.
like on this podcast. I've had all types of people. I've had atheists on the podcast. I've had pastors on the podcast. I've
Right.
had like everybody in between. And it's just like, and the funny thing is every single person that's been on here, they're all great people.
Right.
Like I don't think their focus on whether they were Christian or not or whatever they believed, I don't think it dictated who they were as a person to a certain extent. Like, don't get me wrong, I
Right.
think our identity gets tied into a lot of stuff. I think that's why there's so much argument and so many things about it is because we can't, because it's such a core thing about us that if we have it be our identity, then
Hmm.
anything that goes against it is going to just rile us up, right? It's going to cause an
Hmm.
emotional reaction.
Right.
Um,
You can't
so
divorce
I don't
yourself
know.
from your ideas. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So it's interesting. So yeah, so I'd say it's that. I think if we're talking about I think everybody, whatever they believe, I think that's the thing, is they're trying to figure out, okay, well, yes, what's the meaning of life?
Hmm.
What's after this? What can what's gonna give me hope? What's gonna make me feel good?
Hmm.
Essentially. So those are my thoughts.
I love it. All right. All
Oh
right.
yeah?
I've got a big one.
Okay, tell me.
I will. And then afterwards, whenever I go into mine, I will tell you where it comes from because I mean it'll probably go exactly the place with me that you might think it would. But let's get there first.
Okay.
What is your favorite story and or passage from the Bible?
Ooh. Favorite passage.
Story?
Or story. So, I would say I'll say book. I'd say
It's
Proverbs was probably my
the
favorite book.
the Bible is a book, Ricky. God, you're so
You know
bad.
what I mean? Book within
I'm
the book.
kidding.
Well,
No, no, I know. It is. It's the book of Proverbs.
technically, the Bible is kind of a library of books if you think about
Mhm.
it within a
Yeah,
book.
I know. I was
Um,
joking, being
I
facetious.
know,
God.
I know. Sorry, I was deep in thought. I couldn't take it.
Right, right. Shut up,
So,
Seth.
so, so I'd say the book that I resonate with the most is I think Proverbs, and I haven't read it in a while, but
Uh-huh,
that is one book that when I was struggling, this was a while ago. This was like decade ago or something. I was
uh-huh,
just reading it every day, and I was realizing that it doesn't really matter what you believe necessarily. There's wisdom in that book a lot. So I just remember reading it, being like, this makes sense. This makes sense. And I'd be curious now because I want to go back. Actually, I think I should go back and I should read
uh-huh.
it and just see like if it still feels the same. But
Still holds up. Yeah.
um, Yeah, but that was the big one that I really enjoyed. As far as a book goes, I'm trying to think of stories or passages because there's lots of great stories in there that have lots of deep meanings, and you can take them different ways, which I think is fascinating. You take them literal if you want. You can take them kind of more of like, well, what are they trying to say here on a like a story lens? If we think about it like a story, like
Hmm.
what's the deeper meaning behind this and how it connects to like the human condition. Um, I'm trying to think. What is another good story? Uh, uh,
Ooh, and the yawn too. You're not getting out of this one.
yeah. No, I'm not getting out of this one. I'm just yawning, okay?
Um,
Um, let's see. I would say, yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that came to my head is just that that book, I think was very impactful to me and I liked it. But
right.
honestly, there's a lot of stuff that I like to read in it because I'm fascinated by just the storytelling and the concepts and thinking about like, ooh, what are they explaining here? Like, what's the story here?
Hmm.
Um, but Yeah, I mean that's it. I guess. I guess it's just that book. Just because I like the wisdom
Proverbs.
behind it. That's
Okay.
it. Yeah. Okay. What's yours?
No, 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 no. You got to go. I mean, a little bit more than that. What's in there? What's in Proverbs that you like? And then I'll go into mine. Then I'll go into mine.
I mean, I told you already. There's nothing specific because I can't remember. I just
Right.
remember
Just
reading it and being like,
hmm
"This is I took a lot of wisdom from it at the time because
like
of
really
where
impactful
I
stuff.
was at yeah, where I was at that specific time. I just remember I had
Right.
this pocket Bible with me. I took everywhere, and if I went to the
Hmm.
restroom or whatever I was doing, I'd just pull it out and I'd read and continue to read, and I would just
Hmm.
read it over and over and over and over.
Hmm.
Um, and I just remember it being really helpful. But do I remember any of the details offhand? I don't. Um, but I mean, other than that, um, I like the accounts. I like obviously the Jesus accounts. I think the Gospels are interesting. But what I
Hmm.
like a lot about reading the Gospels is the fact that they line up, but they also don't to a certain extent. And I always think that's fascinating how there's certain things that are different from different people's perspectives,
Right.
how they viewed it, which I think actually leads to the accuracy of some of that stuff too. Which because
Hmm.
that if they all said the exact same thing, then it'd be like, okay, you guys all decided together you were going to say like
Right.
you just
Right.
decided as a group this is what you're going to say. But it
Hmm.
makes sense because people see things differently because the world and reality is it's not objective, it's more subjective based on our perceptions of it. So it's kind of
Right.
interesting seeing those perceptions and learning about some of the history of stuff that was going on during the time. So actually that's probably my favorite part is learning about like what was actually going on around that time and why was this happening? Like that's
Right.
like give me the context of what I'm reading and
Hmm.
then I want to read about like to where I can
Right.
really kind of dive in. So
Right.
okay. That's about all
Well.
I can give you right now. I
Okay.
wish I had more descriptive, but I'm on the
We'll come
hot
back.
seat. I wasn't
Exactly.
ready.
Exactly. We'll double back. Don't worry. Um. So the story to the question is I as a full disclosure, right? I'm not somebody who believes, right? And of course, growing up in mid Missouri, I came up that way. My dad's
Mhm.
side was Baptist, and on my mom's side was Lutheran, and so I'm familiar enough. I have
Mhm.
at arm's length like an understanding of what goes on. And then I found out like later in life I would study, not Bible study per se, but there were like a lot of like things I would look up as far as Christian lore, deeper oh um deeper stories as far as stuff in between text or whatever else like that. And anything in between, right? There was a moment where it was the apocrypha or like the decanonized stuff I got into. I started reading a lot of stuff about the occult and just broadened my horizon about all that kind of stuff. But one of my very best friends was Christian all the way through. And to me, I mean, it's like it was such a beautiful relationship because there were three of us, right? There was me, Matt, and Nick. And not to speak for Nick, but Nick and myself are not not believers in the good word, but Matt always was. And the way that it would lean almost politically was there was like Matt on the far right, me in the center, and then Nick on the left. And just the cohesion of our friendship was beautiful, right? It's what shaped me into who I am now because even though I don't believe or don't agree at times with certain things, doesn't mean I can't have a conversation that's not only civil but respectful and just I can wear my ignorance on my sleeve. You know what I'm saying? If I don't know about something, I can be fearless in the sense of I can ask and I can try to understand, if
Mhm.
someone's wanting to explain that sort of stuff like that. And we were able to, all three of us were all able to freely give and take from each other. And the balance there was just so incredible. And so for me, I wouldn't really talk too much about religion because, like you said, you get your identity tied up in it. And sometimes it's hard to see people's aims because there's a lot of people who want to be right and don't want to listen. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, I don't care if I'm right or not. It's just how I see the world. And if I'm an asshole to you because I think that I'm right, where does that get me? That gets me without any friends. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
no point in any of that. And I've never been the guy to want to fight and argue and stuff. There's stuff out there where, like, if it's just abhorrently or abhorrently wrong or like dangerous or something like that, yeah, I might speak up or I might actively be like, I'm not going to participate. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's on both sides of the aisle. But anyway, I wouldn't really talk to a whole lot of people about religion because it's just kind of a sticky situation. But in my head, there were a couple of people who really shown or have shown the way on what it's like to be somebody who is a, dare I say, good Christian, because I don't want to be, I'm not trying to gatekeep what that is, but from the outside looking in, people who are exemplary examples of what it meant to be a good Christian person. Matt was definitely one of them because there was a time whenever I saw him question that, and then there was a time I saw him rally back, and that is who he decided to be. He chose that mantle for himself, and he learned it. To this day, I don't know anybody outside of like people like religious scholars that you see on YouTube, but person like
Mhm.
from me to you, a tangible individual that you
Mhm.
know in your circle of friends, that dude knew so much about religion, right? He was an encyclopedia. Like he could quote scripture. The dude was super knowledgeable about that. So he's obviously, one of those people because he had humility and he was able to teach and he knew his stuff and he tried to walk the walk the best that he could. And so he was very much so like one of the people who it's like you give Christianity a very good name. And the other person honestly has been you. I don't know a whole lot of people who walk the walk in the sense of if somebody is mean or rude or this or that, you are who you are and you lead the way by setting the example that you have. You don't have to prove to anybody who you are. You found, as from me to you, what I've seen throughout life, what you choose to get into and what you choose to do isn't necessarily to prove to anybody, but more to prove to yourself and live up to the expectations that you have set for yourself, right? And
Mhm.
so, definitely in that sense of walking that walk, and at times even almost alienating yourself from how the rest of the world is, from how all of us are connected and all that other kind of stuff is. Yeah, you've definitely set an example. So I'm not as afraid to talk about this kind of stuff because I feel like you would know that it's nothing that I would ever say to you would be coming from a bad place.
Mhm.
Nothing from judgment, nothing from being critical or anything like that. So all of that being said, I would have these really big, deep uh, religious conversations, about life itself and where things are heading and all this just deep philosophical stuff with Matt. And in this day in question wasn't any different from that. So we were hanging out, and I had just started to kind of dive into some of the more like occult stuff or like oh religious like Christian lore type stuff, right? So I was talking to Matt, and I had brought up on him like, dude, I just learned about the fall of Lucifer, like really dug into it. And he goes, "Oh yeah?" And I'm like, "Now there's two separate, as I'm told, and you might be able to correct me
Mhm.
here. but there's two separate main narratives. One narrative, the more classic narrative, is Lucifer was gunning for the number one position, said, I'm going to be at the top, and God's like, get out of here, little kid. And then there was the other, I guess, more in-depth story that I had heard, which was in the kingdom of heaven, Lucifer was the morning star, the angel that shone brightest than all the other angels, and was blessed with reason. He was the only angel that was blessed with reason. Now, again, if I'm wrong here, I'm sorry. This isn't my bag, but this is one of the things that I had learned. So please allow me some wiggle room here. If I'm wrong, please tell me. So he was blessed with reason, while the other ones were, all the other angels and archangels and things like that, were blessed with duty, right? And so Lucifer, being the mouthpiece of God, being his right-hand man, saw as God created humans, mankind, and saw that that was his number one creation that he loved more than anything. And then he turns to Lucifer and he says, you're expected to be subservient to mankind. This is my greatest creation, and you will bow to them. And Lucifer, again, with reason, takes a look at mankind and notices, like, these are apes that kill each other and fight for their spot on the rock, and they know that, they've yet to know that there's plenty to go around in the kingdom of heaven, Garden of Eden, in the splendor of reality itself. I can't do it. Like, why is it that I would have to bow to these just people that are killing each other with rocks, and at times curse your name and turn away from all of that? And he's like, listen, man, you got to do it. That's your thing. And Lucifer could not bow to mankind. So he was, of course, against the grain and didn't fulfill God's wishes and was cast out. And what really, truly made me kind of love this story is, if you think about it in the sense of, Lucifer was blessed with reason and was created, right? And then turns and very logically says, I'm not going to bow to somebody who can't do this. Lucifer was made in an image, right? Was made to do a job, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
did his job. He was cast out, and he was judged, and he fell from grace for quite literally doing his job, for approaching a subject with reason and with logic and with care, potentially in their heart, and was cast out for it. And I was just like, man, that's so crazy. And I turn over, fully expecting to get like punched in the face from this dude who is a very devout Christian. And instead I hear, yeah, it's a pretty good story, right? And I'm like, you're not supposed to say that. Because what ended up happening in the conversation was, it's a really, really good alliteration for the human experience in general, right? For just mankind as we are, as for not perfect, and as for all of the struggles, and for all of the, killing each other over, coats with rocks and eating boogers and just being idiots. We still, are given love and grace. And whenever logic and reason aren't there, built into how the system is supposed to work, defying all odds, we are still here, and it's just insane, the idea that there would be such a huge fall from grace as far as it being in the shadow of mankind. And so, yeah, it was a really, really impactful thing, not only to learn the story, but see Matt's take on it, right? And to hear his perspective of, like, yeah, that's kind of the story of humanity, right? Through his
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So yeah, to me, that's still, to this day, it's the story itself is just super metal. But on top of that, it was the right story with the right person at the right time. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's still it still touches me to this day because, going from the most important angel on high to, the, the ruler of hell cast out forever, of the kingdom of heaven, it's just like, it's big stuff, as far as the religion thing. So
Yeah,
still, still one of my favorite ones.
dude, that story is awesome.
Mhm.
So, you story tell very well, by the way, Seth. You
Thanks.
should probably do some, something on Audible. Maybe,
Mhm.
hey, maybe you could do Bible stories on Audible for the
I'd be into it.
kids.
Mhm.
That'd be sick.
It would be disgusting.
No, but yeah. But no, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, your story was way cooler than mine. I see why you were trying to get me to say a cooler story.
No, 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 no. I wanted exactly what you got because that to
Uh,
me is the most important thing. There's for a lot of people in the faith, Proverbs is a big one. Then there's also what the Romans Road, and then there is for the hardcore people. There's Leviticus. So it's more the idea of how are you going to answer this and how it reflects on you.
mhm.
Especially like the earlier question of like, what are you most disappointed in? It's not really what you're disappointed in per se, but it's just the idea of the caliber at which you would be disappointed in something, right? It speaks more to the idea of like, for a lot of people, it's easy to be like, yeah, McDonald's got my stuff wrong, and me, versus like, I'm a little bit, bummed that the love thing hasn't happened, or like, that sort of stuff like that, right? Because you could have said a million other things, right? But who
Yeah.
you are, who you truly are, it isn't,
Mhm.
I'm upset with life at home, I'm upset with, my family, I'm this, I'm that. You just like, I think I'm doing everything right. I just, a companion thing. So it's more about that right there to me that,
Yeah.
it's it's less about the question and more about the contents of who you are. So no, the Proverbs thing, absolutely, because it is. It's I've seen for a lot of people, it's impactful. You said Revelations, I might be a little bit scared, but that's metal too.
Revelations is metal for sure, dude.
Yeah,
I've read Revelations a few times, and I can't make
hmm
sense of any of it. And I don't even like to read it because
hmm it's
it's
wild.
just, yeah,
Hmm
it's different. And I just
Right,
feel like it's so, in my opinion, I feel like it's very metaphorical.
right.
There's a lot of metaphors going on there, and I don't know how to take any of it.
hmm
And then everybody always says that something is, like,
hmm
oh, they solved something in it today, and it's like, but did they? I don't
Right.
know.
True. Right.
you know.
Yeah. 100%.
But it's been a while since I've read that. But yeah, I remember reading it a few times and being like, yeah, I'll just leave this one alone. I'll read some
hmm
I'll read some other books.
Right, right. No, it's a big
Uh,
topic no matter what, no matter how you slice it. So yeah.
dude, you're making me want to do some more reading.
History is where
Been
it's
a
at, dude.
while.
hmm
It's been a while.
hmm I highly
Yeah.
recommend it. That's my thing. I think to me, language is the fingerprint of humanity, kind of throughout our development. Right, you can really tell where we've been, and language really shapes how we understand the world around us, both past, present, and future. Right,
Uh-huh.
um, and even how we form our thoughts is based off of not language I'm sorry, exclusively, not language exclusively, but it's a big driver as to how we think about things, right? And that's one of the weird. If you were able to strip your brain away from language, right? You think about how
hmm
you would feel about things, and it's more like infantile because babies don't have that. They intuit
hmm
through everything, right? So anyway, all of that being said, language and writing. Writing, actually, there was a time when writing things down was a technology, if you can believe it.
uh-huh.
So if you go back to like cuneiform, or if you go back to like a lot of the Egyptologists and stuff, whenever like very very detailed accounts of things were happening, like the Rosetta Stone and all that stuff like that, found in there. Whenever we were doing that, before then it was oral traditions, right? And then there came a time when somebody's like, I'm going to write this shit down. And they're like, don't do that. Like that was the world's first computer kind of thing. Uh, a lot of diving into the Bible, a lot of understanding things to me isn't just about the Bible itself. If you think past that, if you go deeper into it and you want to read things
Mm-hmm.
about that, you can see, again, the fingerprints of humanity throughout time. How we thought, why
Mm-hmm.
we thought, how it is. You dig into deeper things like that. Like one of the ones that gets me, speculation. Don't take my word for it. I'm an idiot. But in the Old Testament, how they said people would live to like 900 years or whatever else like that, right? Uh, if you change your perspective and you think about the time historically, whenever people were there, um, that wasn't necessarily true in that sense. That's just how they counted things, and it didn't translate over, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
I mean by that is like, you could say somebody's 600, but that's how it was translated. The best case example I can give to you is if you start looking at something like French, they don't say like we say things backwards. There's SOV or subject, object, verb, right? And how we dissect language and use it. So we'll say something like 22 is what we'll say. So as well as I do, it's up to the number
Mm-hmm.
of 20 and two on top of that. With French, they would say something like 20 and two is what they would say, right? They would just throw
Mm-hmm.
in the 20 and two on top of that, 40 and two, or two and 40, that kind of thing, right? Um, Thinking of numerics like that, that was kind of approached like that. It was just a different way to count things at the time where that group of people were. That's how they counted it, and that's kind of how it was translated. So somebody's not bombing around like at 600 years old. It was like they were probably 60 or something like that, right? The way that age or time was counted then didn't necessarily translate it to whenever they started doing things like the New Testament or compiling all of the books in the Bible, you know. So history is just rife with little things like that, right? Little tiny
Mm-hmm.
details which kind of give you a clue as to, oh, well, it's not that it's not as it seems. It's just that there's so much little information and knowledge and stuff to dive into there that it's fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
at least to me.
This is fascinating. Well, I mean, the Bible in general has been translated so many different times from different languages and all types of stuff. So it's interesting just to even think about how much it's went through that. But I had another idea. Do you think, because you talked about language, do you think language can get in the way of connection? Do you think we would have understood each other and connected with each other without ever knowing language?
Yeah. We have beyond, I think, beyond any other sort of compulsion to connect, to love, and to have a community. I think that's another thing that's like baked into the human experience. It's just innate to people in general. Um, I think that right now, like as the world turns, the big holdup that people have is devolving back into nationalism or getting behind politics or even sometimes being lazy. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, you're here in America, you should learn to speak the language, you should learn English or whatever else like that. Now, the philosophy behind that, you can really get into old generation people who have migrated over to new generations of people who have migrated over and just the different outlooks and stuff like that. But that still doesn't stop the main core principle of for the most part, I think people will let language be a barrier, right? Because a whole other language is a whole other everything
Hmm.
to learn, right? But I think if you truly wanted to, you would find a way. And that's the biggest holdup. As a matter of fact, there's a term for this. Whenever people were not conquesting, but just traveling across, right? And you would get places that would be holdover or border towns, and we're talking like colonial days with like boats, right? Um, there is a term called a pigeon language, right? Or sometimes people will call it like a port language or whatever else like that. So if you're coming over from France and you are on the spice trade, and then you hit the Caribbeans, and they obviously don't speak French, if you make it a uh, if you make it a usual thing where that's an outpost or that's a place where we trade quite often, what you will do is you will come up with a language that's somewhere in between, let's just say Caribbean and French, right? And then you will get something in the middle, and it is called a pigeon language. And it goes from just like maybe port talk to an actual official, like in between language or a pigeon when it starts to set structures, it starts to set rules, and it's repeatable throughout time, right? So that is a good case example of throughout history that's been a thing, right? It's been a
Mhm.
necessity that we have to communicate across the language barrier. So innately, yeah, we're equipped to handle that. I think what we see now in today's day and age is people just don't want to cross that bridge. You know what I'm saying? Through a sense of pride, through sheer uh, ignorance, or maybe even just the idea that they're not forced into that situation where they have to do it. But you surprise yourself how quickly you could learn a language if you're immersed in it. If you were forced to do it, and you specifically, gun to
Mhm.
your head, Ricky, you've got to learn Japanese. And I fly you to Japan, it's like, shit. It'd take you a few years, but within a few years, I'm not saying you'd be fluent, but you would surprise yourself how quick you would pick up on something if you had to do it. So I think that's kind of where I stand on all that sort of stuff like that. No matter what, even if there was no way to understand a different language or somebody or what they were saying, right? You would still find a way.
I like that.
Yep.
Okay. Music. Does music predate language?
Mm. I think language predates music only because if you think
Mm.
think way, way, way back when, and this is just speculation, I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm a
Mhm.
jerk.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that it was more important for survival for us to be able to signal to one another than it was for us to fashion something like a drum or repeatedly make like different sounds. I think
Mhm.
I think it came later. I think music was secondary, right?
Mm.
And I'm just going off gut feeling here. Could be me
Dude,
just being a big giant language fanboy.
I mean, I wanna look it up now. I don't know. I just wanted to hear your perspective.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, dude.
Because that seems logical. I mean, it seems
Mhm.
like a logical approach.
Right.
Because for survival purposes, last thing you think about is music. But I could see
Hmm.
if you're in a group with a group of people, it's like a form of entertainment or a form of connection. But
Hmm.
obviously, that would have came secondary to the survival thing. And I guess you could say, what do you consider language? Are
Hmm.
grunts a language?
Hmm.
If they are, then yeah,
Yeah,
that's a language.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I
Yep.
would agree with you. I'd say language predated music.
Right. I'm with you. I agree. I so agree. Can I get you? I want to hit you with another silly little language fact that I've always found fascinating. And then we can
Okay.
call it. I know you're tired and
Okay.
all that sort of stuff. How I was talking about how language not focuses, but kind of like helps give you the framework as to how you think, right? uh, there's a big thing with Native Americans and the concept of the end times and calendars and dates and things like that, right? Like the
Hmm.
2012 Mayan calendar, the time runs out and all this other sort of stuff. Well, another one, if you dive into it a little bit more, is they say that the Hopi tribe or the Hopi language doesn't have a word for future, right? Which is like it's kind of like the I don't know the clickbait of language or like conversations where it's like ooh what does that even mean and so I watched a thing on it which I found very very intuitive and you know what I'm gonna have to demonstrate I like it because It's realistic. They do have a word for future. It's just not how we perceive it, right?
Okay.
One of the fun things about language is we all have a shared experience, but certain languages can come up with a term for it, right?
Hmm.
Uh, for instance, in German, there's Wanderlust. In English, it's a sentence. That's a person who likes to travel around a lot and doesn't like to sit still. But
Hmm.
German has a word for it. German's pretty good for that. Anyway, so Hopi has a term for this, right? So the way that we think of the future, we are going into the future, right? It's a very linear sort of
Hmm.
thing, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what we do. We look into the future, we live in the present, and we look back into the past, right?
Hmm.
With Hopi, their perspective was we don't know what the future is. So we move through time, not backwards, but we know what's happened in the past while we are here in the present making the future happen. There's no way to know what the future is. So while
Hmm.
we're heading that way, we can't see into it. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So there's no term for future. Really, it's about the idea that all of us throughout human history, this is how we move through time. So we see it as it happens, and then time brings it into focus.
I like that.
I love that concept. That's one of my
Okay.
favorite things I've learned.
Okay. Well, that makes me think too about is it Greek or what is the language that has like it might be multiple languages, but they have like seven different forms of like the word love, essentially, like different meanings of it. Where we have
Hmm.
love, whatever this
Hmm.
language has like seven or eight different levels of it, and it's all different words. I can't remember which language that is right now.
I haven't heard of it. I'll have to look it up. I can
I'll have to
assume,
look it
yeah,
up.
something like Greek like that too, but yeah, I don't know what that is.
I got to look it up. But either way, um, I was reading that one day, and it just it fascinated me for the fact that I was like, okay, hold on. So how limited does that make it for us if we only know love as one thing? And it makes sense that that would be complicated because it's like the love for your spouse, the love for your child, the love for a
Hmm.
friend, like I love this
Right.
food. Like it's like you're saying love, but it kind of all means different things.
It has different
But
connotations. Right.
exactly, but I guess in some other language, or at least the one I was looking at, I wish I remembered it for this podcast, but it kind of came out of nowhere. But it talked
Right.
about like there's different levels of it, and there's different words specifically for that type of love.
Hmm.
And I just thought that was fascinating. So it made me think. I don't know. I guess it just makes me think about that because I feel like we a lot of us some of us throw around the word love a lot, and then it's like, but you don't really love that cheeseburger like you love your wife, right?
You're right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Take
You
this
know what I
cheeseburger
mean?
down to the courthouse.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't know. So it makes me wonder if like if in that language, if language does kind of dictate how we perceive, how we perceive things, and it makes sense that like you might perceive love in lots of different almost on different levels,
Hmm.
you could say, or in different I don't know. Can't think of the word.
I think context would be what we're going for here.
Context. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, to us, it's just like a blanket term. Love.
Right. Well, that's a big thing that like a lot of different languages, and English included, rely on context, right? And so
Uh-huh.
in that case, yes, you have to be part of the sentence or the conversation for it to come into context and make sense. The only one that I can think of, the only parallel that I know of that has something similar, and I think it's Tagalog in the Philippines. I think I'll have to look it up next time. Whenever they approach different family member terms. I'm pretty sure it's Tagalog. If not, next time I'll totally correct myself and look it up. But um, very tight knit community. They're the type of individuals that you grow up as a family, right? You all live together in the same house. It's that kind of situation, right? And so everyone, including like neighbors and friends and stuff like that, you know how your mom or your dad have a very close friend that they're basically your aunt or your uncle. You'll call them that, right? Something like that. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but I don't know if I had anybody like that.
right. So there's somebody
But
that's
yes, I know
like
what you're saying.
close,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right, or you have somebody
yeah.
that's best friend that's like a brother kind of thing like that, right? So whenever you whenever they have that, they have stuff like, cousin, and they have brother, and they have aunt, and all that stuff like that. It is an interchangeable word for aunt and uncle, right? Like your aunt could be the next door neighbor that helped raise you, although there's no family ties. And there's very specific terms for like uncle twice removed kind of stuff like that. Well, it might fall under aunt, or it might have like an actual like extra tag on their name. Aunt is still a part of it, right?
Mhm.
But it's an overarching thing. It's not just one word. So there are very, very specific titles that each one of these individuals have throughout your hierarchy of life. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, that's something that I think it's Tagalog, but I'd have to look it up. It's
But that's
Vantagalog.
interesting because I think if you have a language like that that has specific terms, you're going to find people to fill those roles or those terms, right? If
Hmm.
we don't have the title for it,
Right.
you're not going to fill it. So it's kind of interesting to think. So I would bet you
Hmm.
in that language or wherever that is, it's like they have some close knit people, right? They have people that fill that role, which is that's interesting. I like
Yeah.
that.
Well, no, that's good. I mean, to intuit that too, to say that, like, if you think about what you had just said a bit the other way,
Hmm.
if you like what you had said, if they have a word for it, somebody's going to fill that spot. It's rather the
Hmm.
idea that if they have a word for it, it is a reoccurring theme. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
a big one again, another party favor is like the Inuit, like for the Eskimo, their language, they have like 17 different terms for the word snow, which it's not just snow. There's slush, there's sleet, there's icy roads, there's ice, there's compact ice, that kind of thing, right? But
Hmm.
it just goes to show that like snow, ice, cold weather is such a quintessential part of their life that their language has forced them to say, I mean, this
Mm.
specific type of snow because it's going to be an avalanche. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a
Hmm.
lot more on the line. So they have to come up with terms for it because it's the world that they live in. So yeah.
That makes sense. Actually, I like that perspective because that's true.
Hmm.
Because we do that every all day. Like if you have people in certain trades,
Hmm.
even for you, you do solar, you're going to
Hmm.
have lots of different terms for certain things that someone like me would have. It's like, I would
Hmm.
say, I don't know what I'd say, but you know what I mean? Like we,
Right.
you, because you're in it, it makes
Hmm.
total sense.
Right.
Ah, cool. I dig it.
Good.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, Seth, this has been awesome, by the way.
Yes, I love it.
First episode, hot seat. Yeah, we'll have to do it again because the cool thing is we can come up with crazy questions all the time.
Right. I love it.
Okay.
You should
Me
just
too.
do this like all slapdash, like on the phone, just like call somebody up, like, what's your biggest fear?
Just put in random numbers on the phone. Hello? Hey, I have a question for you.
Ricky, with the 98% podcast, what's your biggest fear? You've got 2 seconds. Go. Ooh, you failed. I'm sorry.
You
Hello.
fa- It's just going to be an episode of just random people saying hello. Hello in 100 different ways.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Hello? Hi.
Yeah. Ricky gets harassment charges pressed.
Yeah, it's been shut down. So I'll
Yeah.
be back in a year, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to catch these charges.
Sweet. First episode of Hot Seat. Let's do it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Over and out.